So, what is quinoa?
Ugh, why did she pack these things? I ate one by accident last time, and we won. It's good luck. But it tastes like a dirty old tree branch. What the heck is quinoa? But this is for first place.
What is that, a loofah?
It's a quinoa.
Bud Light, for the fans who do whatever it takes.
Well, quinoa is a grain grown primarily in Bolivia and Peru. It's been grown for thousands of years by indigenous people. It's really important for the area because its ability to grow in the high, arid climate of the Andes. It's also been very important because it's super high in protein and contains all your necessary amino acids as well as many vitamins and other nutritional benefits. For indigenous populations who aren't eating meat very often, this high protein content was very important to their diets. However, recently, the high nutritional value has also caused quinoa to explode in popularity worldwide. Bolivia is the largest producer of quinoa, and the United States is the biggest importer, so I focus on these two in my project. Here are several different brands of quinoa that are sold in the United States. It's interesting to look at their packaging and see what type of marketing is used. There are several buzzwords that appear multiple times: organic, traditional, authentic, fair trade, all the health benefits, this idea of romanticizing the source as the peasants of the village. Some people see this information as genuinely important and helpful information for consumers. Others see it as merely another way of marketing and hyping the product. It appeals to a sector of the consumption industry for food that enjoys high quality, also high priced products. To those who criticize this sector of the consumption industry as being pretentious or yuppie or bougie, as I've heard it called, quinoa has become almost a poster food of the ridiculous nature of these shoppers. In this Pinterest board, it's funny that they use the name quinoa for their character because the woman behind the board says that it's so ridiculous that a grain could become trend. So, in the United States, you have this idea of a trendy grain and of fair trade as being used for marketing. However, I'm interested in looking then at the real story of quinoa and fair trade in Bolivia. My primary source of information about Bolivia is an ethnography by Andrew Osterhage, who's an agronomist and anthropologist. In his work, The Construction of an Alternative Quinoa Economy, Balancing Solidarity, Household Needs, and Profit in San Agustin, Bolivia, he looks at a specific region of quinoa producers in Bolivia. The town San Agustin is in the Los Lipis region, and it produces a quinoa that's especially known for being of a bigger grain size and better quality. It's also grown using more manual labor, which of course makes the production is more expensive. However, the producers view it with pride and think that it's a more traditional technique. It's interesting to note that people from outside the region sometimes look down on this as being backwards and lack of modernization. Because of the talking about fair trade involved in my project, it's important to know the background about fair trade. The goals of fair trade are to help protect small local producers from the exploitation that occurs in a global market. So it tries to help concentrate political and economic power into the hands of the producers to help them bargain for higher prices so that they have good living wages and that can invest in their community in the long term. Because of this, cooperatives are oftentimes used as a tool of fair trade, as seen it's a very good way of helping do this and help avoid the exploitation of the middlemen who buy at low prices and then turn around and sell at high prices. However, in his work, Osterhage shows that this idea of fair trade and cooperatives that's often presented as being the best option through the United States is not the only option. It may in fact not be the best option for all producers. He identifies two other channels of business besides cooperatives, which is there's one national Bolivian quinoa cooperative. There are also the middlemen who tend to be local individuals who travel through rural areas to collect quinoa and then sell them in urban cities. And there are those who are in favor of a denomination of origin group, which focuses on just the region specifically and marketing it as Los Lipes quinoa. So, which of the three channels producers prefer really comes down to a question of solidarity and identity. This should probably be the meat of my project, as I can look into that topic of identity and how they frame it. Um, so, for those who identify as Bolivians and are more interested in the international market, national growers, solidarity with other Bolivians, the national cooperative seems like the best option as it offers higher prices. However, for those who don't like all the other requirements of the cooperative, and that has all these standards of quality and quantity and membership, they feel more identity as regional growers and really care about the Los Lipes name and keeping that intact with their production of quinoa, since they think it adds extra value that's lost when it's mixed in with other Bolivian quinoa. And then there are those who don't like these organizations, prefer to have one-on-one interactions with middlemen who they know and view as being more local and more flexible in their pricing and opportunities to buy and sell. Then there are those who don't necessarily feel any sort of solidarity and are just interested in getting the highest profits possible. Another topic that's slightly related I think is interesting is the relationship between quinoa and aid. The U.S. subsidizes a lot of wheat into Bolivia due to Bolivia's status as being the poorest country in South America. This wheat is sold very cheaply, which outcompetes quinoa, which has a price that's on the increase due to the international demand for it. There's been a noticed replacement of wheat into diets that used to be filled by quinoa, and reviews with local women, especially the urban poor, show that they're well aware that quinoa is much more nutritious, but they just can't pay the cost of quinoa anymore, and buying bread and noodles to fill their stomachs is much cheaper, even though they realize that quinoa is better for them. And this increase in wheat consumption has led to health issues in the Bolivian population, such as an increase in diabetes, and also led to a change of taste, and that kids growing up not eating as much quinoa anymore do not like it as much. As you can see, my interests are kind of all over the place. I think it's super interesting how quinoa and fair trade can mean one thing in one country and something completely different in another country, and how they're so interconnected. But I really need to work on tying this all together and narrowing it down and developing a thesis and incorporating more language and identity analysis. So all and any suggestions are welcome. Thank you for watching and looking forward to class on Friday.